Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. And our top stories today: commercial real estate expresses optimism, and why real estate is one of the most ethical forms of investing. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Deidre Woolard. She is the editor of MillionAcres.com. Deidre, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you. Always happy to be on BRN.
When I think of real estate, I think of you, and I think of MillionAcres.com. And I know today we're going to talk about commercial real estate. And, there was a very difficult time in 2020 during the pandemic, and still difficult time in terms of commercial real estate. But I get the sense, just kind of reading some articles, that there's a new optimism. But you're the person I want to hear from, because I know you've got your ear to the grindstone, so to speak. So what can you tell us about real estate?
I think optimism is a very good way to put it. There is an optimism right now because we are all looking forward to when there is sort of the herd immunity and when vaccines are fully rolled out. We've heard different times, by May. It's probably going to be a little bit later than that, in my opinion. But we're starting to see hotels and offices start to get ready for this and try to figure out what the future looks like, because it's not a question of us all going back to the way we were before. We're seeing this slower, more measured rollout. Some people are saying we won't be back to normal in offices until 2025. So there's a lot of things happening as people prepare for this event, which really hasn't happened before in real estate.
Deidre, what does the impact of what's going on with rates, does that play any impact at all? We're seeing a lot with long-term treasuries. We're seeing words from the new Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, hearing from Jay Powell. A lot of alignment there, but on the residential side, we're seeing mortgage rates creep back up. I think we were up 3%, up above 3% for the first time in quite a while.
We were above 3% last week. And so that is having an impact. But really, commercial has been weird because the deal flow in 2020 was virtually stopped, and there's been some capital building up, distressed asset funds. They were kind of waiting to pounce if properties went into foreclosure. We've seen a little bit of that happen in the hotel sector, but not to the point where people were expecting it to be. So a lot of that money that would have gone into these distressed assets is kind of sitting on the sidelines right now. And, I've been talking to a lot of people about where that money will go. Is there going to be that big buy-up moment on the commercial side? And people have been waiting for it, over 6 months now, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but it, as you said, it most likely will happen as people start at some point to return back to the office and things become a better investment. But as you said, you've told us before, data centers, they're a great investment. I would think that we're all going to want to get out. There's all this pent-up spending demand that we've talked about with you and others on the program. I think that retailers, I want to be personally bullish on small business and retailers.
Absolutely. So for an example, looking at the REIT market, Real Estate Investment Trust, hospitality REIT returns for February were up nearly 24%. So that's showing that optimism that people think that people want to go on vacation. I think that's very natural. Retail REIT total returns were up by 12%. There is that feeling that there is a little pent-up demand. We're probably going to see another stimulus check. That may end up, some people save it, but some people may spend it as well.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned a new normal, and we're not going to go back to the office the same way the office was. There are going to be some new innovative technologies that are deployed for this virus and hopefully for other future issues. Hopefully there won't be any other pandemics. The last major pandemic was obviously the Spanish flu back in the early 1900s. But what can we expect in terms of innovation, in terms of technology? I've been reading about air quality technologies, contactless temperature taking. What are you seeing and hearing about the office of the future?
Well, in real estate, it was interesting the past year. There was so much focus on data and really a reliance on database decision making. And we've seen a couple of these companies go public via SPAC. One of them is Latch, which is a smart lock company. That's been very popular. We've also got the idea of digital twins. So there's a company called Matterport that's also going public. And a digital twin essentially is an online version of a building. And it's built by all of the sensors inside the building itself. So that gives the people that are managing the building an ability to check things like air quality, like heat patterns, where people are clustering in an office. And all of that starts to change how people design offices. The office of next year is going to be very different because you're going to have this hybrid work environment. So that means that some people will be in the office and some people won't. So how do you make that experience equalized? Well, part of it is we're still going to be on Skype and Zoom. We're still going to be doing what we've been doing during the pandemic, but some of us might be doing it in the office inside phone booth-like spaces, and some of us may still be doing it at home.
Yeah, and is it your sense that, contactless? I mean, I'm yearning for the day when I can shake hands with somebody again. Other than my wife and my two cats, where I say, "Give me the paw." Look, we have a cat that's like a dog. But are we going to get to a point where I think like hand sanitizer, quite frankly, is going to be a commodity? It's like water or other commodities, right? I mean, I think that we're going to see a lot of businesses maintain some social distance. You mentioned the airflow, the heat tracking, the heat map tracking. But are we going to get to a point where I'm going to be able to shake your hand when I come to the Motley Fool offices in Virginia to see you and we finally meet face to face?
I think so, because I was reading an article in Smithsonian recently, and they were talking about yellow fever and how during the yellow fever epidemics, everyone stopped shaking hands. Now, this is in the 1700s, but there have been these things before where people have stopped interacting in that way. But the need to have contact with another human being is so deeply primal. I don't believe the handshake is going away.
Yeah, I can't see that happening. I mean, it's enough to be around somebody, and I think that's where these hybrid offices, I think, make a lot of sense, because you can be around people. But when you celebrate winning a deal or winning an award for best website like millionacres.com, and you want to high five, it's not like a virtual. You can't do that over Skype, right? I can't go, way to go, Deidre, and we high five. That just doesn't feel right to me. So I think like. Yeah, I feel like the hybrid office is going to be a hybrid office, but there is going to be some contact. Maybe we'll have to use hand sanitizer before we do hands up, hit each other.
Exactly.
Well, Deidre, I want to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about why real estate investing may be the most ethical type of investing. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Deidre Woolard of MillionAcres.com. Deidre, thanks as always for staying with us this morning.
Thank you.
And I have my hands all sanitized, and we can do the virtual high five. I thought you did a great job in that first segment. Lots of great information there for the audience, especially people who are concerned. How am I going to go back to work? What's it going to look like? I think that may give some people some pause, a little bit of trepidation. I know I'd be nervous to experience what it's going to be like after over a year of being away from people. Let's talk about ethical, and let's talk about ESG, because you and I have talked about this. We've talked about it in other asset classes with other guests on our show. Environmental, social, governance, sustainability, these are all the buzzwords. These are all where a lot of money is flowing. But a great piece by one of your colleagues talks about how real estate investing is really the most ethical, or one of the most ethical investment strategies. What can you tell us about this?
I think it really can be. And I think that there's a bad reputation sometimes about landlords. And my experience, the experience of my colleagues, is very different from that. Really, both residential and commercial landlords, especially those smaller landlords, are looking to help their tenants. Small commercial landlords are often most likely to rent to small businesses. The mom and pop landlords are people that are very involved in their communities. And there's really something that is valuable in people renting to people rather than corporations renting to people. So that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect is, if you're investing in REITs or things like that, there are companies that are doing, ESG policies. You mentioned data centers earlier. So there's a big concern with data centers because they suck up a lot of power. So you have data center companies looking into alternative energy, solar, wind, things like that, thinking about how to design their centers along LEED principles, things like that. So there are a lot of ways that real estate companies, big ones and little ones, are thinking about these issues.
And I love the fact that, I'm a big small business guy. I am a small business. I mean, BRN is a small company, small network. And to me, a small business, they employ so many Americans, proportionately, they've been hit disproportionately in terms of the impact economically. I love the fact that people are trying to lend or provide offices and office space for individuals who are running businesses. But there are other things that people are doing, right, Deidre? I mean, there are certifications that you can get for a building in terms of being green. My wife and I live in an apartment building, a condo building that is certified. So they have lights that turn off. They have group areas that allow people to before the pandemic, socialize, congregate, get together. That really is also a big part of this as well, in terms of being ethical, using the right building materials, et cetera.
Absolutely. So there are two main certifications. There's LEED, L-E-E-D, and WELL. And those address things like that. They address things like gray water recycling and things like construction waste. Construction waste is a huge problem, really in the United States and around the world. So addressing that, addressing how materials are used, if are things reused, how are they disposed of, can they be recycled, things like that are all very, very important when you think about construction, because really construction can be one of the most wasteful, things in terms of energy and in terms of putting things in landfills. So it's really important for companies to address these issues.
Yeah, it was funny. I think I'm the last person in America to watch The Sopranos, so I finally watched it during the pandemic. And there's one episode where Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini helps someone who's cleaning out a school get rid of asbestos. And how do they do it? They dump it in probably the Passaic River. That's probably not a good thing to do. But these, in all seriousness, these Leeds buildings, these Wells buildings, there's airflow. There's how they promote airflow, how they use heat, how they use air conditioning, how they have maybe more communal where there's a place to eat, a kitchen, because you have to be able to store your food. If you bring your food for lunch, you have to store it in a refrigerator, right? So there are a lot of newer technologies being implemented that kind of get us to a point where there's not as much waste. I think that's a huge undertaking, but very important.
Well, and I think part of it too is we need more connection to nature, to natural light. So it's interesting to watch. Some of the most innovative building design actually is about buildings that can maybe have shades that lower and raise automatically, using natural light, using air from outside, using green roofs and things like that. I feel like during the pandemic especially, a lot of people felt that need to be connected to nature. It's very healing, and as human beings we really need that. So it's sort of exciting to see the most innovative ideas actually about getting us more connected to our natural environment.
Look, if we could put a skylight in my apartment, I'm on the 12th floor, there are 40 some odd floors, I'd love to be able to get natural light. We've got huge windows. That's great. Let me ask you a last quick question, I guess, on this. And I mean, there's so much more to cover here, but in terms of individual real estate and people renting from landlords, there's a lot being done to rewrite laws so that people who want to rent an apartment can do so and not feel discriminated against. I mean, that's part of this as well, right? It's not just environmental. There's also a social component and a governance component that if you want to rent an apartment and you meet the standards of having the right credit score and being able to pay the rent, and there's really no reason today that you shouldn't be able to rent a place.
That's very true. And we're seeing a bunch of different laws come out. This year, the past year with the eviction moratoriums, things got delayed a little bit. But you have laws like in Seattle, there is a first in rule, which basically means that the first tenant that is fully qualified can rent the apartment, and that can make it easier for people to get an apartment and is designed to sort of eliminate bias. So there is definitely a lot of conversation going on about that, and obviously we have a new HUD secretary who's going to be focused on that as well. So with the new administration comes a renewal at looking at some of these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Deidre, it is always a pleasure chatting with you, and I hope again one day that we can, instead of doing the virtual high five, we can actually high five after sanitizing, shake hands. Deidre Woolard, pleasure talking with you as always, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow, so until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.